let's return to our top story. Monday's powerful earthquakes, which have left more than 5,200 people dead in both Turkey and Syria. Thousands more are injured. Rescue crews are frantically trying to find the hundreds of people still trapped under the rubble. Well, for the very latest, we are expecting to cross live to southern Turkey and speak to Associated Press correspondent Shamin Chowdhury, who will be joining us from the town of Adana. She is at this moment trying to hook up onto the satellite line, and we should be going over to her imminently. But you're looking at pictures there of rescue efforts, people still being pulled out alive from the rubble. Well, let's take you straight away to southern Turkey now and speak to Associated Press correspondent Shamin Chowdhury, who is joining us from the town of Adana. Shamin, thank you very much indeed for joining us. And where you are, one of the cities that are near to the epicenter of the quake in the south of Turkey, what sense are you getting of the scale of this disaster?
Well, this disaster is on a huge scale, Charles. It is being considered as the largest earthquake in 100 years and the most powerful since 1936. And in that one, 30,000 people died. The death toll here is more than 3,500 now, and those numbers are expected to rise. Now, you can see behind me a rescue operation that is going on. Similar rescue operations have been going on across the region in the 10 or so cities that have been affected by this earthquake. They include Gaziantep, Hatay, Marash, even cities as far east as Diyarbakir. Now, to give you a sense of the scale of this tragedy, more than 100,000 square kilometers of the country has been affected by it. That is more than 2 times the size of the Netherlands and larger than Portugal. So that really gives you a sense of just how terrible this tragedy is. Now, rescue workers like the ones behind me have been working throughout the day, throughout the clock since the first of the earthquakes happened. And bear in mind, there were 2. First one was in the early hours of Monday morning, and that was 7.8 on the Richter scale, and that was just outside the southern city of Gaziantep. And the second one was 7.5 on the Richter scale, and that was around lunchtime. Since then, there have been 100 or so aftershocks. So it really is a national tragedy here. Tens of thousands of people injured, 13.5 million people affected by it. So it is really, the country is in a state of emergency and the entire nation is mourning.
And Shamin, when our team here spoke to you earlier trying to arrange this interview, you were driving to Adana. I was wondering what you saw out of your car. I mean, how accessible is the route to where you are? Because, I mean, you're close to the epicenter of this disaster.
We are, and that's a very good question, because our journey starting from Istanbul has been, in fact, before that actually, has been very much indicative of the challenges that this country is facing. So we travelled from Paris, and many flights to Turkey were being cancelled. We were very lucky to get one. We arrived in Istanbul, and at least half the flights to the cities that have been affected by it have been shut down, and that is because of bad weather. Now, the weather really is hampering the rescue process. It means that many rescue workers can't get in. Some of the roads have been severely damaged by the quake itself. One of the main roads into the city of Gaziantep has been smashed to pieces by the earthquake. So rescue workers are having to find alternative routes. Some are actually arriving by sea, bringing in aid. So our journey really really painted quite a stark picture of what is going on here and how it affected and how it is affecting the rescue efforts and how people are trying to cope here. The other thing that we experienced when we were coming here is we would stop at various places, we would stop at petrol stations, and people would come up to us and tell us that they had lost entire families in this earthquake. One man told us that he had lost immediate family members, 7 of them, including children. We had some really harrowing stories, and we've been hearing them at this point where we're standing now in this position throughout the evening. We've been here for several hours now, and we've heard weeping, heartbreaking stories, people crying, people still waiting for loved ones. So it is a really, it has to be said, a really quite a tragic situation we are finding ourselves in.
And Shamin, President Erdogan has announced a state of emergency. He's set aside, from what we understand, hotels to act as shelters. But we're hearing on social media and elsewhere that people are very critical already of the response. I suppose, I mean, that is unavoidable. But what are you hearing from people about their reaction to how this is being dealt with so far?
Well, if I'm honest with you, Charles, most people's concerns are really for people that haven't been accounted for. That, if I'm honest with you, is the sense that I'm getting first and foremost. You're absolutely right, measures have been put in place, and it has to be stressed that of the 10 cities that have been affected, some have been affected more than others. In Adana, although you are seeing, of course, some devastating scenes behind me, but other parts of the city are actually quite normal. So residents here do have access to shelter, to food, to heating, to internet access. So I think maybe that is mitigating some of the criticisms that are coming out in terms of the kind of systemic and structural approach to this disaster. I think that Recep Tayyip Erdogan, as you have said, has put in these measures. You have to bear in mind that a lot of people are sympathetic towards him. So it's a kind of there's kind of two sides of the picture here. There are those who really feel as though not enough is being done, but at the same time, others feel as though everything that can be done is being done. So it's a bit of a mixed bag, if you like.
And Shamin, you are, of course, on the Turkish side. What sense are you getting of how things are on the Syrian bit?
This is a very crucial point, Charles, because I'm not really getting much of a sense of what's happening on the Syrian side at all. Neither are many other people, from what I can gather, and that is because it is a very closed country. In many ways, in times of this tragedy, Turkey is very fortunate. It is an open country. People around the world are aware of what's happening here. They at least are able to communicate with people inside Turkey. That is absolutely not the case in Syria. You have to remember that Syria is still technically at war. Parts of it, in northern parts like Idlib, there's still fighting going on. The other point to remember is that millions of people inside Syria are internally displaced and have been for a very long time. Sometimes several times over. There has been a humanitarian crisis there since the war began in 2011. That hasn't changed. Some would say it's actually getting worse. The incentive, or rather any kind of desire people have to bring in aid and to help people is going to be very, very difficult. It's very hard to get aid in, very hard to know what's going on there, very hard in terms of communication, and of course it's very, very cold.
Shamin, thank you very much indeed, and do take care. We understand that many of the buildings where you are, if not collapsed, are listing dangerously. So do take care. Shamin Chowdhury is the Associated Press correspondent, and she's talking to me there from Adana in southern Turkey.